Hi. So I wanted to make my second video about my ayahuasca visions. So I had three ceremonies total. I already shared you the first one, and this is the second ceremony. So we did it Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And on Wednesday, we had a different shaman coming in, our main shaman. The first shaman was his brother, who helps out every once in a while. But this ceremony was from Enrique, who is the main shaman, and his wife and a couple other kind of shaman apprentices, if you will, help as well. And they all kind of take turns singing songs during the ceremonies. But the main two are him and his wife, Aime. On this ceremony, I came in with an intention, and I just decided to do one intention. Last time I did all three in one, and I decided, no, I want a little bit more specific on just one. And I chose, how do I love myself? Which is something I've always had trouble with. Before we started, kind of funny, we're sitting there waiting for the shamans to show up and watching the candle burn, and a giant, like 4-inch cockroach, no, it was more than 4 inches, it was probably more like 6 inches, came into the hut we were in, just started crawling around. And we didn't want that crawling around while we were, tripping, so a couple of the guys had to chase it out with their puke buckets. And eventually got it out. Then a cricket jumped in, a bunch of bugs just kept bugging us. Finally, the shamans showed up, and we all got our ayahuasca, and we were waiting there for the effects to kick in. And right as we were waiting, a single firefly flew in the door and just started circling the center rafter. It was awesome. Really, really, really cool. So this ceremony was different. They warned me that the ayahuasca this time was stronger, but it didn't feel that way at first. It wasn't taking me. And I sat there, because usually they wait like 30, 40 minutes before they start singing. And they had sung 3 songs, and I still hadn't been taken away. Like, I still kind of felt kind of weird, and I felt good, but it wasn't taking me. And then after they sang 3 songs, bam! I don't even know how to explain it. But it's as if my whole brain just opened up, and right in front of me was the entire galaxy. Like I said, it's hard to explain, but I had no idea my brain was capable of seeing, almost comprehending so much space. I just could not get over how expansive it was. It was huge. It just went on forever. And my brain was able to kind of comprehend all that space. It was crazy. And so finally, when that happened, I thought, okay, great, it's got me. Let's try to get a vision. And as I tried to, kind of push myself into another vision, like, I couldn't even grasp. A thought and a vision just seemed so small to my brain that I couldn't even grasp that. Eventually, I got to the point where I didn't even want a vision. I just wanted to sit here and just enjoy the view, which, again, it's just like the galaxy opened up to me. So for a long time, I just sat there and just marveled at what I was seeing. This vision was important to me in other ways too, because I had an experience with females in this dream. Like I said, Aime was in there, and she started singing, and it just hit me to the core. I could not believe how beautiful her voice was. I could not get over how beautiful her voice was. There was this part in this song, she would go, na 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 na. Oh my gosh. Seriously, I don't even know how to explain it, but to me, her voice was the purest voice I'd ever heard in my life. And her voice to me represented motherhood, just complete motherhood. She was it. Oh, it was so beautiful to me. As I finally, it took a while for me to get into that deep stage of this ceremony, I just begged, just silently. I said, please, please, just sing another solo, please sing another solo. And she finally did, and when she did, like, I almost wept. It was so beautiful. And then she actually went around and blessed everyone. I think Enrique must have done the other half of the room. I'm not sure. I was out of it. But she blessed my side of the room. Oh, that was so special for me. She came to, instead of pulling us to them like they usually do, she went to each of us individually. We had a big group. I think that's why. When she came to me, she blew smoke on me, and she gave me a blessing. She put this agua de Florida on my head. And as she left, we just held hands for a second as she went away. And it was just a little thing, and for me it was really important. That was about the peak of my vision. And I could see the expansiveness of the universe in front of me just kind of retreating a little bit. And I could tell I was kind of getting more control. And I thought, okay, well, now that it's kind of retreating, why don't I try for a vision? So again, I thought, how do I love myself? And I wasn't sure how to start. So I reached out in front of me, and I grabbed a point of light, I don't know, a star in the distance. And I pulled it up and I put it right to my eye. And as I did that, it was as if, like on Google Maps, when you see the Earth and you just keep zooming in on one point. It was like that. I was on this star and I just kept zooming in through the clouds, through the mountains, until I came to one focal point, and it was me. It was me as I am now, completely naked, asleep in a grassy field. And so I'm looking at myself and I'm thinking, okay, all right. And by the way, my moth, still there. Every vision I ever had, my moth was still there, which I think is awesome. He told me, first thing he ever told me was, I'll never leave. And he was there for every vision. Loved it. So I'm sitting there with my moth, looking at my body, and I'm wondering, okay, what do I need to see? So I put my moth at it, and I would just glow in this fluorescent green light. But that was it. I didn't see anything big, no big visions or anything. I just sat there and kind of stared at myself. So then I decided, okay, well, I'll zoom in. I zoomed in, I looked through my ribs, and I just stared at my heart. And I just watched my heart beat. And that was it. Nothing big. No big vision. So I retracted back out, and I thought, all right, stared at myself again for a minute, and I noticed a sharp point of light at the base of my vertebrae, like on the base of my neck. And I decided, okay, I'll go in there. So I dove down into the base of my vertebrae, and it was just all these just numerous, it was just so many without number of wires, just these fluorescent green wires all over. And it was beautiful, and I thought, oh wow, this is really complex. But again, that was it. No big meaning, no big lesson, no big vision. And I went, okay, so I backed out of my body again, and I'm sitting there looking at myself, and I still see that point of light on my vertebrae. And so I point my moth at it, and right as I do that, just the galaxy opened up again for me, and just infinity. And then I came to myself and went, whoa! And so then I was back in the hut, and I'm sitting next to all these guys that are under ayahuasca as well. And so I decided to point my moth at all of them. So I pointed it at my buddy Mike, and pointed at the base of his neck, and then poof, infinity. I pointed at this guy Roman next to me who doesn't even speak my language, and I don't know it all. Pointed at his neck, poof, infinity. And then I laid back down, and I saw a beam of wood, and I focused on one wood cell, pointed my moth at it, and poof, infinity. I pointed at one cell of my finger, poof, infinity. I realized that we are all infinity. And infinity is within us infinite amount of times. That blew my mind. Something I can't even comprehend now that I'm not in ayahuasca, but that was a lesson I learned. And I thought, okay, how do I love myself? How can I hate anyone, least of all myself, when I know what's inside me? And that's the lesson I was taught. I just thought, I am so grand. I am such a piece of art piece of artwork from a creator standpoint, that how can I hate myself? It seems silly at that point. I just kind of felt silly for ever having hated myself. Really cool. So after that, the ceremony ended, and Aime left me. And we lit a candle, we all huddled up, started talking about what we saw. It was fun. I remember Josh from Australia, one of the buddies I had there, he was like, I can't get over it. I still am trying to convince myself I'm not a fish. And he had this vision where he was a fish, and he couldn't get it out of his brain. So we sat there and talked. I purged. By the way, that's a thing. Like, you're going to throw up. You're going to get diarrhea. You're going to make some runs to the bathroom. I cried a lot. Not like cried, but like tears came out of my eyes just almost the whole ceremony long. I would sweat a lot. That's all purging. And they say that's all part of the process. It's trying to get your body pure so that the ayahuasca can take effect. That's how they see it. And then I could tell I was still kind of high. And I laid down on my mat, and the ayahuasca took me again. But it took me in a completely different way. And honestly, this wasn't good. This was terrifying. I felt like all my wires were crossed. If I wanted to move my right hand, my left hand would twitch. Like, it was just weird. It was like all my wires got crossed, and I was losing control of my body. Which was odd, because if I could have had a complete conversation with somebody. And in fact, some people would talk to me and I would answer and in just a normal answer. Weird. I was completely conscious, yet physically I was having trouble controlling my physical self. And like I said, I got really scared. It was super frustrating and super scary because I was smiling, yet I was terrified. And so I knew that whoever looked at me, if they came to check on me, they'd see I was smiling and they'd be like, oh, he's fine. But I was scared to death. I don't know how to explain it other than I was just terrified. My consciousness was doing weird things. I was having every thought at once, and I've never experienced that before, but every thought was happening in my brain all at once. It was exhausting. And then if I could work really hard, I could focus on one thing, and I was looking at the wall kind of next to me, and my memory started playing games with me. I was looking at the wall, and my memory was saying, now, 1,000,000 years ago. Now, 1,000,000 years ago. So it was as if I was seeing it now, and then a second later, it was a memory that happened 1,000,000 years ago. And then it was now, and then it was a memory that happened 1,000,000 years ago. Oh, it was so freaking exhausting. I had enough wherewithal to look over at my Australian friend Mike, and I could see he got back into the ayahuasca as well. He was gone on his mat, just laying there, and I could see it took him as well. And with all my energy, I crawled over next to him, and I was able to ask him if he was okay, and he said he was okay. So I said, well, I'll just stay next to him, on the pad next to him, just in case he's freaking out like I am. And this whole time I was like embarrassed. I didn't want to call for help because I was afraid, I don't know, I didn't want to bother anyone, and I was kind of embarrassed. But Yvonne was laying at my feet just on the wood, just kind of talking with people. And it got to where I thought, I need help. Someone needs to help me. I'm freaking out. So I thought, maybe I'll crawl over and I'll cuddle with Yvonne. And I was going to do it, and then I realized like that would be weird for him. Plus it'd be weird for me. And then I realized, but I kind of want to be taken care of by a woman. Like I want a woman to take care of me. And I looked across the room, and Kate was there, who was a girl I just met from Ukraine. And I saw her, and I thought, well, maybe I'll call for her. If I call for her, maybe she'll come over, and I don't even know, like just let me rest my head in her lap and just kind of help me through this. And I was going to do that too, but then again I thought, that's super selfish. I mean, she's having a good time talking with her friends. I don't want to bother her. So in the end, I just had to wait it out, and I was fine. But it was a couple hours of just complete fear, just frustration, and I was terrified. But I think the lesson was that sometimes when it seems like you should panic, sometimes you just need to relax and just let it happen. And it ends up being not so bad in the end. Anyway, that was my second vision, my second night. I feel like it was kind of shorter and less lessons taught, but it may have been my most powerful vision, just with all the expansiveness. It was really, really powerful. The next day, actually, a man brought in a bunch of paintings that he did having to do with his visions in ayahuasca. And he had the moth on some of his paintings. So I asked him, I said, Juan, there's a moth on your painting. What's the significance of the moth? Because I always see a moth. He said that there wasn't a significance per se, but that it is an Ícaro, which apparently is a song or a melody they use for ayahuasca ceremonies. I had no idea before this that had any sort of significance to ayahuasca. And what's funny is weeks before this trip, I asked my buddy who went with me, or I was joking with him, and I said, man, I hope I get a badass spirit animal, right? And we kind of laughed, and I actually thought about it a little bit. It's like, yeah, I get a panther, like a horse, something cool and majestic and kind of fierce. And then I got a moth. I never would have chosen a moth in a million years. And for me, it's the perfect one. Anyway, thanks for your time. That was vision number 2. Stay tuned for number 3. Thanks.